I've just found a bit of time to make a quick extra video because it's quite a simple video in a way, although it has taken a bit of time to set it up. You see, since I got the VHD player, you might remember that from an earlier video, I've been on the lookout for interesting things to get to play on it that you can't get in any other format. And on a Japanese auction site, I found this thing. This is a video catalogue of products from National, which was a Matsushita brand, and their different range of products that were available in October 1985. And that's on side A, or side 1. On side 2 is just a load of film trailers, so I'm not going to play you those. But looking at this, it's going to go through things like CD players and TVs and things. Now, this range here doesn't look particularly interesting, but I thought it's a bit unusual. We can sort of travel back in time a little bit, go back to 1985, see what was available in the Japanese market. And since I was going to be putting this in and playing it myself, I thought rather than just playing it and sort of wasting it, might as well watch it on this, capture it to that, and do a voiceover at the same time on this, and therefore you can watch it effectively at the same time that I do. So this isn't prepared. I might be blathering on a little bit, but hopefully you get to see some things on here that jog your memory, a bit of nostalgia perhaps. So I think without any further ado, I'll best put it on and we'll both have a look at it together. Okay, I hope you're sitting comfortable. I'm just pressing play on this now. Looking at the back of the box, it looks like it takes 40 odd minutes to go through this. I suppose you could always pause it in the middle of something if you get bored, or I suppose you could always just turn it off if you don't like what you're hearing, because this is the kind of thing I haven't done before, so please bear with me. It might not work, it might crash and burn, and if it does, just pretend it never happened, okay? We'll just keep it between us. So this is a National brochure. National was a brand that wasn't used in the UK after 1980, but it's part of the Matsushita brand names, and of course some of these products will have been launched in the UK and in other countries under names that aren't National, primarily Panasonic, I think, and Technics. Although this VHD player wouldn't have made it anywhere other than Japan, so of course that used National. So we'll see what's in here. It looks like we're going to go through a few things according to this. So we've got a VHD player, televisions, oh yeah, there's a CD player. I was going to say CD, and it wasn't on. It was VHS, then CD, and then mini systems. Well, would that be a mini system? That's maxi system, stack system, I suppose. I forget what they used to call these things back in the day. And karaoke, by the looks of it, with perhaps an 8-track player in there. Oh, MSX as well. So we're covering quite a lot of bases here. Hopefully there'll be something of interest to somebody out there other than myself. Now, I do remember seeing an article on the news recently where they mentioned that people with Alzheimer's, they had their memories jogged if they watched videos from back when they were younger, and it made them think about other things. I'm hoping that's going to happen to me with this, not the Alzheimer's bit. I hope that this is going to jog my memory for some other things that occurred in the 80s. Notice she's got the remote control there for the VHD player that I'm using. However, hers is in English and mine's in Japanese. Perhaps we could swap them over, because it looks like we've got the wrong ones. So yeah, this is telling me that I can select any chapter, I think, just to jump to the particular part. So CO1 will probably be the intro, or maybe it's the next chapter, I'm not too sure. The next one goes on to VHD, and then other things. I'm going to guess TH24 would be a television. Hi-Fi will be a VHS, CDs, and then after that, not entirely sure. But we're automatically going on anyway, so we don't need to worry about it. Now, I've had some nice people tell me that they'll translate Japanese for me. Great, thanks for doing that, and it would be great, but I'm going to be doing this live, so there's no time to ask anyone to translate a 40-odd minute video for me. But let's see what this is about. Looks like sales are up, perhaps, or something's up, something's on its way up. 57 through to 60 and up to 50 at the top. 2,000 titles, perhaps, on VHD. Yeah, these are VHDs coming across. We've got the VHD logo at the top there. We've got a couple of these, of course. Star Trek 3. So, yeah, this one is from October 1985, so that's kind of the era. I'm going to guess this is the VHD launch party, looking at it. All got those big CRTs there. CRTs are funny, aren't they? They date things very much to the 80s or earlier. Of course, in Aliens, I think they had little CRTs everywhere all over the ship, and of course that's supposed to be set in the future, but maybe they're going to make a comeback, you never know. Along with Aliens, maybe we're all going to get CRTs back again. I've certainly got one here that I'm looking at. I've got to say, if you're going to be playing back old video devices, interlaced video, there's nothing like a proper CRT to play it back on. I've tried scaling these things up onto my nice big 65-inch 4K OLED HDR LG television, and they just look awful. There's a kind of shimmer to them, there's a shake, and I've tried all sorts of systems with Laserdisc and with this VHD, and it just doesn't look as good as playing it back on a CRT. I think a lot of that is down to the fact that the CRTs are smaller, of course. You can't blow stuff like this up to 65 inches and expect it to look good, especially at 4K. But yeah, that's the player, that 350. I think that's the model I've got here. Let's have a look. Yeah, DP350. So this, funnily enough, is a video about the thing that I'm watching this video on. So that's some kind of Inception type stuff going on right there. Yeah, there's a little window on the top. I don't know if you noticed that in the video. I never noticed a kind of multicoloured effect, but there you go. They must have got the light on that perfectly. Yeah, so they've got their nice English remote. Let's see if I'll just reach over for mine. Yeah, my remote is a little bit different actually, I'll be honest. Maybe mine's got sort of more controls on there. Yeah, I've got more buttons than they have, but I've got the same machine. Maybe they updated the remote control later. Of course, mine was from, I think we said it was 86, didn't we, when we opened up the box. If you haven't seen the VHD video, I'll probably link to that in the video description. Another thing I should put up in that video description is a proper version of this without the old boring nutter jibber jabbering over the top of it, because if you do speak Japanese you might want to watch this properly, and you don't need me ruining it for you. So look at that, measuring it up with cigarettes, brilliant. You won't get that nowadays, would you? It's roughly the same height as a pack of cigarettes. Yeah, not kind of thing you'd see. Anyway, yeah, I was going to say I'm going to put a version of this on the other channel. There'll be a link in the video description, and there'll be no voiceover on that. So if this is doing your head in, which it probably should be doing, then click on that one and you can just watch it without any messing about. So I've got the 3 different machines here, it looks like, or 2 different machines. DP350, 89,800 yen, so that's what I'm playing. There was a nice silver one in the background there. Let's see if we get to see any more of that. No, it's gone. Okay, so there is an AV amp by the looks of it. Oh, they've got a nice little setup here. So we've got the television, speakers. That speaker's very close to that TV. I wonder if that would have caused problems, although presumably they've designed those so that they don't. Are those hanging down speakers part of the setup as well? I don't know. They seem to be pretty obsessed with Superman, don't they? Like it's some big deal. Was this Superman 3? I think it was. I'm not entirely. Oh, there's the silver one at the bottom left there. Yeah. That one looks like it might have the same... No, the bottom right one's got the same controller, I think, as mine. Yeah, so there's 4 different ones of these VHD players. All have that Disc Lord name on them, although actually this one doesn't. Maybe no, is that at the bottom right though? Yeah, so that's got an LED display on the front. So's that one. We're going up the range here. That one says PC after it, so maybe that one could be linked up with a PC. That PC interactivity, linking them up with MSX computers and things, isn't on the model I've got. Perhaps it was on the ones further up the range. So there you are, that's the national range of VHD machines. Of course, this was the big launch, 85, I think, for these, the big push for them, and that was the year when they were doing pretty well with them. Didn't last long, though, but yeah, for a few years they were reasonably successful. Right, so what is going on here? I'd love to be able to tell you. I think we're just looking at television screens. Is that CX 200X? Sorry, 2000X? I couldn't really tell what that logo said, but yeah, that's 229,000 yen. 24 inches, I'd imagine. That's the size on that one. So, of course, that was the kind of size you'd be watching one of these on. I'll be honest, a VHD on a television that size would look fine. It wouldn't look any different to Laserdisc. Laserdisc, of course, costs more for the machines, as we mentioned on the previous video. The actual discs themselves were the same price as VHDs, but on a screen of this size, you really wouldn't have noticed any difference at all. It's only when you get bigger. And some of the later Laserdiscs, the ones out in the 90s when they had them in a letterbox format, and of course therefore you're getting less resolution because you just use the centre part of the image. You'd notice the difference then, but because VHD, as we saw in the VHD video, died out in 1990, so it never got into that 90s market really. Don't know what they're doing here. got the coats on, look like not ready to stop, whatever it's is. There we go. So what's this? 2AV. Yeah, I'm sure the Japanese people are probably throwing stuff at their computers right now, getting very annoyed by the chap that can't speak Japanese, but sorry about that. Won't mention it again anyway. Right, so it looks like this is a whole setup. Oh, look, there's quite a few inputs on there. We've got 4 analog RCAs and a SCART as well, and one of those other weird connectors that I forget the name of. I didn't know the Japanese used SCART. I always thought that was more of a European thing, you know, the Peritel and SCART socket. I didn't know it made its way to Japan. I kind of guessed that they were using a component, but I suppose that's more of a US thing. Speakers on the side with a nice little reflector there to baffle the sound and throw it forwards. We've got 2 little cube speakers. I say cube, they go back a little way, don't they? But those surround speakers, oh no, it looks like they might attach on the side of the television, give it some ears, or go underneath it even. This was the age when everything was very much to do with black plastic and black components. Not my favourite era. I prefer the look of the things from the early 80s and the late 70s. By the time we got into this kind of mid to late 80s period, a lot of these companies were struggling a little bit, and they were bringing out innovative devices with lots of features, but the build quality just wasn't there anymore. It wasn't like the early 90s Japanese stuff where it's dead solid. It was a little bit cheaper. I can't imagine many things have really survived from the era that this video is showing, whereas if I had a video which was all about 1970s components, I'm sure lots of people would still have those. Right, so this guy's using his MSX computer on the floor with a little desk. I don't know what's... Off-Road Race. Now, I've seen that title, I'm sure, on the VHD catalogue. That's one of the ones that can be interactive if you load it up and link it in with an MSX computer. Say interactive, very limited interaction. It's kind of go left, you've crashed, go right, you're all right, that kind of thing. So we're going to be looking at this MSX computer here with this television and 85. What's that? It's going to disappear. Is that a channel number on the television, perhaps? I think what we're doing is we're going through the features of this TV and going on about how many different things you can connect to it and all the different inputs you can put in the back, how you select between. That was dangerous. So, a woman in her pants skating backwards near a motorbike. Get off the road, love. You're being stupid. Or maybe the bike's in the wrong place. However, one of them should really yield and go away. All these screens, of course, are all simulated, aren't they? The woman's just sat there looking at a presumably a blue screen there. I don't know what's going on here. It's a weird video. Is this a pop video that they're showing, or just random stuff? Imagine you sort of film one of these things and you wonder where's that going to be, and it ends up on a VHD disc that's played in a dealer's window over and over again, and you kind of wait every 40 odd minutes, you'll come around and go, that's me, look there, that's me with the kites on the beach, and then you're gone. So 24 inches, 229,000 yen. Because we're all square screens back then, 4:3 ratio TV screens. And one thing I noticed, the US was a lot slower at catching on with widescreen than the UK. There's US programs that were broadcast in 4:3 ratio, like things like, say, Star Trek The Next Generation, where over in the UK we're already watching stuff in widescreen. So unfortunately you watch some of those videos, they managed to upscale them now, or get the original source and put them into HD, but they're still in that 4:3 ratio, which is a bit of a shame because you're watching them on a 16:9 TV, and especially if you've got like an OLED TV, it is suggested that you shouldn't watch too much 4:3 ratio stuff, because of course you've got black areas at the left and right, and it can end up getting a bit of burning if you're not careful, if you do it for too long. So I end up stretching things out to widescreen, which of course then people on the videos comment, why have you got it stretched out? So I don't damage me £5,000 TV. This isn't me fast forwarding. This is the video just demonstrating the trick play facilities or features of the VHD system, which is something I demonstrated in the video myself, how you could go back and forth and slow motion and pause and things. It is quite neat. You got to think that this disc also was probably in a dealer's window. It wasn't sealed when I got it, so it's been playing over and... Oh, that was VHS. That shows what I'm talking about. But anyway, this VHD... I'll pretend I didn't say that. But this VHD disc, this would have been playing over and over in a dealer's window for a good period of time. And it's still looking fine. There's no wear to it. Whereas if it was a VHS, like we're watching now, it wouldn't have fared quite so well. Now, we're showing the hi-fi mode on VHS. I remember getting my first hi-fi VHS player, well, recorder, I suppose. It would have been approximately, what's this going to be, 1990 or so, 91, not too sure. Maybe 92. The first thing I played on it, I know this, I got Lethal Weapon 2, and I'd linked up all the speakers to the back of it and got them all around the room and played this, and the surround sound amazed me at the beginning, because if you remember Lethal Weapon 2, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler alert, as it starts, there's a car chase right at the beginning, you know, when they're going after the South Africans with the Krugerrands in the back, which I never knew why they said. What accent is that? It was obviously South African. But anyway, there's the chase at the beginning there, there's cars going past you left and right and sirens and things. It's a really good surround sound sort of demonstration right at the beginning of that film. So I remember playing that over and over again. Kept getting people coming in, going, hey, have a listen to this. Woo, and I'll listen. People going, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I don't think people were as amazed as me, but yeah, first time I ever got a surround sound system set up, probably early 90s, I think now, if I get my dates right. One thing with me, I'm terrible with remembering things, dates and people's names and things. However, I do remember, I can't remember what I'm saying. I do remember the model numbers of devices. So I can remember, like, my first CD player was a Marantz CD65DX, but I don't remember what year I got it. The speaker stands were Highbrook HBS ones, and the speakers were Wharfdale 505.2s with an Arkham Alpha 2 amp, but I couldn't tell you what year it was I got it. Strange. I would have had a memory for numbers, not for anything else. Don't really know what use that could be. Anyway, we're going off topic a bit here. We're now looking at the whole setup, aren't we? We've got the surround speakers there, and it's gone. So Technics CD. I always feel a little bit like I might be able to speak Japanese at times when you listen to one of these things, and they just stick on the end of everything. and you think, oh, so Japanese is just like English with on the end of stuff. Well, it obviously isn't, but it's where they use these international names, they kind of tend to do that, and it makes you think you're a bit cleverer than you are, that if maybe you spent a bit more time listening to it, you better speak Japanese. I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, look, lightweight, only 520 grams. I do like the look of this device. This is a Technics, and if we think of the year 1985, of course, this is reasonably early. I suppose it's the first portable one that Technics had. I do remember seeing my first CD player, and it was the first CD player, the Sony... Is it the Sony CDP 101, or it's like 101 or something like that? The first Sony CD player. Before it even came out in the UK, I had a friend who, his father, I mean, I was only sort of 12, 13 or something at the time. His father was a chap who sold planes. He worked for BAE Systems, and he sold the Airbus and other airplanes around the world. So he used to travel a lot. Hardly was at home, actually. I don't remember seeing him a couple of times. But on one of his trips to Japan, he picked up the first CD player and brought it back with a couple of CDs. And I remember having a go on this thing, and of course it had the little LED display on the front, and you could skip to the tracks. And the thing that I found most fascinating about it wasn't the sound quality or anything like that, just the fact that it had that little LED display that told you what track number you were on. That was quite impressive to me at the time. So I suppose this nice little LCD display on here would be impressive to the people then as well, and of course they're making quite a bit out of it here. So yeah, that was 82, the first CD player came out in Japan. Probably only worked its way to the UK officially in 83, 84 maybe. So this is 86, and we've got a portable version. Of course, that first home device was quite a large item, so they've done well to shrink it down to something this size. I'm sure this is what they're going on about, how they've got all the features that you'd get on a full-size machine, but they managed to put them into a nice little portable. Of course, people nowadays give CD a lot of stick. I hear lots of people going on about sound doesn't sound so good, and you want high res and this, that, and that. First off, CD sound is, as far as I'm concerned, excellent. You can't really fault it at all. And if you can, then you've got better hearing than me, and you might just be imagining what you think you can hear. There's a lot of sales stuff goes on about it's digital, it doesn't sound as good as a vinyl record, etc., etc. I don't know. Look, if you can hear the difference, you're doing better than I am, put it that way. CDs sound excellent. The other thing that I'll say is people always gone about CDs easy to scratch. They get scratched a lot. Oh, they're always scratching. Oh, scratch, scratch, scratch. Oh, then they jump. And I don't know what people are doing with CDs. I haven't scratched any CDs. The CD players don't scratch them. They don't scratch just holding them in midair. So you're doing something to them. You're scratching them. So by saying they scratch, you're saying I scratch CDs is what you really say. So don't scratch CDs. If you don't want to scratch CDs, avoid scratching them. Put them in a case. Keep them in the case. Don't just throw them in your glove box in your car. But anyway, that public information is over. Let's carry on and have a look at this. Nice little carrying case for this. And the little AC adapter there. One thing I'll say about these ones, back in the day, of course, carrying it round, it might have been alright for taking it somewhere, but you wouldn't really want it to try and listen to it on the go. I'd imagine those were battery times there, 7 and 3, I don't know, 3 hours charging for 7 hours playback, or 7 hours charging for 3 hours playback. Now she's put it in a special case here, that looks like it dampens it, so that it doesn't shake as much. I'd imagine that's what's going on there, because of course back in the day when this came out, 85, they didn't have digital anti-skip buffers. Remember I did that video about the mini disc, and that had a what did I say? Was it a 10-second buffer at the time for the mini disc? Over the time of mini disc, over the years, they ended up increasing that, so it went on for minutes of buffer. But back when this thing came out, they didn't have digital buffers like that, so they'd have to use anti-shock kind of rubber mountings and things. You still have to be very careful not to shake these. Sony first brought out their anti-shock Walkmans with the digital anti-shock system after the mini disc about the same time, because they used the same technology. Before that, they had some sort of anti-shock devices, but it was all based on rubber dampening, you know, like cushioning to try and stop the thing from skipping. Because, of course, it is very fine, you know, and laser's got to read the flipping thing, so you can't start shaking it around. She's walking very carefully there, so I'd imagine that it doesn't have particularly great anti-skip. One of the things about the mini disc, you know, when they had the later ones, they had the big long buffers. The way the discs work, you'll see them, they'll spin for a little bit and then they'll stop. But they've done enough spinning in that time to get like a couple of minutes worth of music into the buffer. And then they'll just power down the motor. And then a couple of minutes later, they'll spin up again and get some more data into that buffer. And that's how they could have such long playtime. The disc isn't spinning all the time. It's just every now and then it's grabbing enough for a couple of minutes worth of music. And it's a good little system that. Of course, if you want to skip tracks or fast forward or something, then the motor kicks in and you have to jump through it manually. But yeah, if you're just letting it play, it isn't spinning all the time. Right, magic finger, what's all this about? Well, it looks like you draw a wave on that display or that little input there to draw your graphic equalizer. Oh yeah, that's where it is on the left there, we can see. Of course, things like this are all gimmicky, aren't they, really? Nowadays, people don't like graphic equalizers. I like the one that's on my system, although it is playing up a little bit now. I think it's a bit the worse for wear due to its age, but it's useful for me because I've got it set just so it has a nice sound, just how I like it, but also it has outputs that then go off to other devices and inputs as well. So it's useful not just as for a graphic equalizer, but for a tape system. I have the DBX decoder on my graphic equalizer, so that I can switch that on, and that will then send the sound through the DBX decoder. I can play DBX discs, or if I don't want to do that, I then just have it bypass the part of the graphic equalizer, and it just plays stuff normally. So it's a useful device for me to keep in the system, even though it is acting a little bit odd at the moment. I'm on the lookout for a better graphic equalizer, but of course it's got to be silver to go in with the rest of my system, and there aren't many made that have sort of programmable things like this, although I don't really like the look of this one, I'll be honest. Notice at the bottom there it says surround system, doesn't it? So this is obviously for some, this hi-fi is also a device that you'd attach up to your AV system to have a proper surround sound setup with your VHS recorder, or perhaps even your VHD system, because of course those have Dolby surround on them as well. AV surround effect at the bottom there. Fixed manual music movies. Those things that you used to get on those AV systems, you know, when you had the different equalizers, and you could do like hall, concert, jazz club and things. Those are awful, weren't they? I mean, whoever used any of those? Whoever used any of this? That concert one where it made everything sound like a big echoey thing. Nobody. There's literally no one on the planet that ever pressed that button more than once. They pressed it, went, oh, listen to this. Doesn't it sound awful? Then went back to the normal setting, no doubt. They might have pressed rock or something. But yeah, those big echoey ones. What's the point in that? We've got the two little surround speakers here. Now, those round speakers like that remind me of the ones from the Weltron 8-track player from the 70s, early 70s. I've got one of those. I'll have to show you sometime. At the moment it's in the loft. It's a tape chewer, so that's why I'm not using it. But yeah, it certainly has a space age aesthetic to it. Of course, this business about having text behind the grills, that was something that takes me back. There was always things written behind grills on speakers back in the day. You don't see that anymore. Timer there, so presumably for timed recordings. This is the kind of thing that well, not this one, but I would have had back in the day, you know, like a MIDI system for a while. I don't know, most people my age probably started with one of these. I remember my brother was looking to get one, and he couldn't decide between, I think it was a Pioneer and Kenwood. And the Pioneer was obviously much better. I was looking through these brochures with him. I said, "I'll get the Pioneer. Look, it has this, that, and the other, whatever it was." Sorry, I said get the Kenwood. Sorry, wrong story. And he didn't want the Kenwood. And I said, "Why don't you want the Kenwood?" And he said, "Well, they make mixers." So he actually got the Pioneer because he didn't like the way that the Kenwood people made mixers for the kitchen. Whether it is the same people, I'm not entirely sure. I'd imagine it is. But yeah, I mean, you got to think Yamaha make motorbikes and pianos. So yeah, it doesn't have much of a bearing on the hi-fi that they also make a mixer. It's not going to blend your CDs. But yeah, that's the kind of thing I'd have. I started off with an Amstrad, the first sort of MIDI system I had. And a lot of people in the UK had those, and it was because they looked like they were better than they were. Of course, there wasn't the internet then, you couldn't read reviews of things, so you just saw them in a shop and you said, oh look, it's got all LEDs on it, it's got twin tapes, it's got this, that and the other, that'll be alright. You didn't know it was rubbish until a few of your friends had one as well, and then everyone knew they were rubbish, and I suppose that's why they didn't carry on doing them. But yeah, you could get quite a way back in the day by selling crap without anyone being able to tell anyone about it. Nowadays, you'd have no luck. If you brought out something that was rubbish, everyone knows pretty damn quick. But yeah, so I migrated from the Amstrad to, what did I get then? I think it was that hi-fi I mentioned to you earlier on with the Marantz CD player and a couple of other things. I went all sort of high-end when I got my first job. I thought, right, this is it, you know, I'm a yuppie, which I was on. You know, my first wage, £32.50 a fortnight. That was my first wage. I do remember that. So it took me quite a while to save up for that, as you can imagine. But when I got it, that was what I spent all my money on to start with when I got a job. And then, of course, over the years, I ended up with some mini system and things like, you know, when you move in with someone and you go all sort of arty-farty. Then recently, of course, I've got that big monstrosity, as the missus calls it in the lounge. But I think it's a work of art. Oh, she's back, the crazy grinning woman. I don't know how she manages to do this, to sort of talk and grin at the same time. How do I try and talk and grin at the same time? It's like I'm doing a ventriloquist act, but she's managing to do it. God, it's awkward. If somebody started singing like that in front of me, I'd just cringe. I've got a thing about that. You know, if there's a performance, I'm not able to cope with performances where someone's like singing to my face. I just feel like I want to crawl up and die inside myself. I just can't do it. So yeah, right now, I'd be looking much like this guy here. Who looks a little bit awkward. Looks like he's been flown in from some futuristic sci-fi movie that was made in the late 70s. So I'm guessing he's playing back to what she's been listening to and dubbing it over and all this kind of stuff. That tape on the left says National on it, but it looks like the TDK one. I wonder if they're part of the same chain. It's a cool top that he's got on, isn't it? I'll be honest, I think I was wearing stuff like that back in 1985, so I've got to give him a bit of slack. It's not his fault. It's society and fashion that are to blame. I'm quite sure he's not doing that there. Oh, look how nicely manicured his fingers are. If I wish I had fingers that look like that, then maybe I wouldn't get so many complaints. But he got a hand doubler to do that, or maybe they just brought him in for his hands, not his haircut and his glasses and his shirt. People ask me about my little microphone. Why do I always put it on upside down? Because it sounds better that way. That's the end. There you go. Good anecdote. Cool story. Right. No, I found that I do, if I speak like with a microphone like that, I'll end up popping into this microphone a little bit. It doesn't sound too good, kind of booming. Also, I have trouble with sound anyway because I have this thing where it kind of boosts itself automatically even though I change everything so it doesn't. So look, I'm doing the best I can. Look, it's a one-man show. Give me a bit of a break. Come on. This isn't the BBC. Have you seen some of those YouTube videos where it looks like someone shot them with a potato in the dark? Look, it's a lot better than that. So look, just enjoy it, please. I noticed there was a shower symbol on there then. One of the ones at the end, so press that and a shower. I want to look at that 8-track though. That's intriguing me. Why is there an 8-track player in this? 8-tracks died by the time this thing had come out. The Columbia Club in the US were selling them through to about 86 or 87. And that was the last place you could buy new artists on 8-track. But it must have been karaoke 8-tracks that were still around at this time, or maybe people had big large collections of them or something. That looks an ugly setup, doesn't it? They've got a plant dying in that little cupboard at the bottom there as well, next to something else. Looks like a Russian doll, but it isn't. Yeah, so karaoke was a big thing in Japan, of course, and still is. Never really took off in the West. I know there's sort of niche places and stuff, but people are just too awkward to do it over here, I think, and except in pubs when people are very drunk and it just sounds awful. Oh, there, look, those take 8-tracks as well, look, on the left there. TV, FM, AM3, yeah. So must have been a thing, 8-track karaoke. Who knew? Right, we're going on to MSX computers now. Things always used to do that in the 80s, didn't they? You got Starfield and the thing would fly out into the front. That was like the way to show everything. Anyway, this is the FS4000, a model I'm not familiar with. In the UK, we had MSX computers from Tattoo. Oh, he's back. He's got a shirt on now. It means business. He's got his belt on. And wow, how high is that waist on there? I wish I could tie my belt that high. No luck with that one, I'm afraid. But yeah, anyway. What was I saying? Yeah, we had different MSX computers in the UK for games and things. Never really took off. There was that big early 80s computer thing over here where everybody who could put a chip on a circuit board brought out a computer. MSX was the idea that they're all going to be compatible from different manufacturers. And there's good videos online about MSX from like Nostalgia Nerd and people and others, I'd imagine. I've watched his though, but... yeah, I don't know much about this kind of stuff, but this one looks like a word processor. So this is not going to be very exciting. I was hoping we were going to see some games or something, but no, we're going to see number one, which is that. Okay, cool. Now, of course, Japanese word processors are going to be quite a little bit different to ones that we're used to because each of these symbols is a bit of a pain in the bum to type in. You've got a QWERTY keyboard and you're trying to type Japanese symbols in on it. And I suppose there, she's picking from 1 through to 6 to type that particular key in. It must be a bloody nightmare typing on these things. I have no experience, of course, with this, but I'd expect that keyboards never were the best way, really, to enter in Japanese text. I'd expect that one of the reasons smartphones and things takes off, maybe because you can put a Japanese keyboard on the screen, on the glass. You could just type the characters you want without having to try and get them to map to QWERTY keys. But that's just the sound of a completely ignorant man talking about something that he has no clue about. And that's giving an overlay of the overall page there as well, isn't it? So, yeah, nice, neat little idea this, I suppose, though, having an MSX word processor. Of course, Amstrad in the UK, about this time, I suppose, brought out that PCW8256 computer, which was a word processor. However, there were a couple of games come out for it later on. Obviously, that wasn't what it was intended for, but there were some adventure games, Rainbird, I think, and of course it had a high-resolution monitor, high for the time anyway. So you got some nice black and white high-res graphics on that, but I know a lot of people bought that. I remember seeing it everywhere at the time, and I think there was a good demand for just a simple system where you had a monitor, a disk drive, a printer and a keyboard all together, so nobody had to think about anything. It was like, look, I want a word processor. Someone says, well, here's a word processor. You go, well, that will do. You know, no buying software, installing it, making sure the printer worked with your computer. I mean, printers are a nightmare, aren't they? Don't you have a lot of trouble with printers? It's one of those things still that computers still seem to argue with printers, and the printer is not on the network, and you press print and then things come out all the wrong size. There's always that thing, isn't there, when you print something, there's that extra page with like a full stop on or a little line just from the... Why is everything always like a page and a tiny bit? You have to be careful when you're pressing print. You have to do a print preview and just pick the page you want. So you can hear I'm blathering here. I'm sorry about this. I'm going to be sort of doing a lot of blathering. I mean, we've still got time to go on this. How far have we got? My computer says we're recording for about 30 minutes. So there's probably 10 minutes left of this to go. Hopefully you're not too bored yet and you're enjoying looking at some of these weird things with me. I think he's got about word wrap here, isn't he? MSX is the world's first home computer operating system to be adopted by many manufacturers. Okay. Yep. Good. This bloke looks a little bit like that chap off Mad Mission. What was his name? Sam Huey or Sammy someone or other? Looks a little bit like him. Right, I'm really running out of things to talk about when it comes to looking at an MSX computer doing things like this. I suppose we're using different fonts here, and of course the Japanese yen symbol down there. But yeah, she's looking a bit fed up as well, I think. I don't know what she's making her own symbols up now on this. I'd hope this computer also plays games. You can imagine somebody saying, "Hey, look, kids, I've brought home a new computer," and the kids go, "Yeah, what have we got?" And they go, "Yeah, I've got the MSX." Something, "Oh, MSX, brilliant! I can play all that game. What was it, Ice Climber or something? All those kind of things, Ice, whatever it is." And then they go, "No, this is just for word processing." And the kids are like, "Oh no, you've ruined my life." You know, talking of ruining lives, I just want to mention something. There might be a high-pitched whine on this video, other than my whine, because I noticed that. When I put videos out before, I've had a CRT in the background or something. I get these kind of, I suppose they call them Generation Snowflake, don't they? Where they go, my ears are hurting so much. There's a whine from the CRT. There's a high-pitched whine. Please help, it's killing me. You're like, it's a big deal. And I'm thinking, hold on, I spent my entire youth watching television on null. Why watching television on CRTs? And somehow I managed to survive. Now, of course, I've got to the age now where I can't hear these high pitches coming from these screens anymore. But yeah, God, imagine you were around in the 80s. What would those people have done? I'm not watching television. If you turn the television on, it hurts my ears. I'm just going to read a book and look at the wall or something. Yeah. But so there might be a high-pitched whine in the background of this, because I've got a CRT, I don't know, what's this, about a foot away from the microphone. Oh, God, she's playing baseball, so she can play some games after all, but very briefly. Look at that computer desk there. This was always a thing. In the, I suppose in the 90s, when people were buying PCs from shops like Tiny and Time and Gateway and stuff, the bloke was always going, "I'm going to get a computer," and the woman at the house always used to say, "Oh, great, that means we can have a nice desk to put it on." So the lady was in charge of picking the furniture out, and the bloke picked the computer. And of course, nowadays nobody gets a desk for their computer, do they? But yeah, it always used to be that these old chaps going, "Yeah, I want a printer with it as well. I'm obsessed with having a printer." Printers were like a big deal, that they wanted to print everything they saw. Like, that was very important. It still is for some of these older people. They're obsessed with printers. I tend to do a lot of this thing where I save. Look at the dancing there. I tend to save as PDF on the OS, Mac OS as it's called now. It has that save to PDF rather than the print thing. Saves a lot of paper and ink, but there you go. A lot of people like printing still, if they can get it to work. So that's the range of stuff. Looks like we're covering everything so far. There's I don't know what we're paying for here with this motorbike. Oh, it might be this television. Little speakers there that go with that as well, so you get your stereo sound. You can listen to the motorbike fall off in stereo. Whoa, look at this guy. This is, look at him, damn, with his acting. Brilliant. That's a bit weak, isn't it? Those speakers aren't even connected up unless they're wireless. I suppose he was just doing that to a blue screen or a green screen. He was hoping that football was on there so it looked more sensible rather than him going hooray every time the motorbike fell off. I thought she was smoking then for a minute. Oh, she's getting her hair out of the way. Just watching a blue screen floating around on the television. Those speakers are in the way. Someone's going to trip over those, aren't they? Right, so here's the cool guys with this sound. I like the way all these screens are kind of overlaid on this. All these monitors are all at a bit of a janky angle. That's quite amusing. Here he is. It's Mr. Motorbike Excitement again, but he's chilled out a bit now. He's watching some music. So there is your full set. Those speakers are particularly ugly, aren't they? Yeah, I don't really rate any of that stuff. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted any of that now. You can imagine all this landfill somewhere. That thing in particular, where that's got one of those pull-out record players at the bottom as well, of course, yeah. But yeah, none of this stuff is particularly good quality equipment, is it? It's none of it's like classic hi-fi. It's all plasticky 80s nonsense. But interesting to see anyway, I say. Let's see what the next thing's coming up is. Right, CM, what's this? Your guess is as good as mine. Oh. Hold on. CM, is that commercials? Not too sure. Good little special effects there. We seem to be watching all the clips with Hitchcock in, where he's doing the cameos in his own films. So it's a bit of a spoiler here. I think what we're watching here is television commercials, so they must be playing a few commercials. You get this at the end of those Apple presentations, don't they, where they say, we've got a great new product and let me show you the commercial for it. So here's the version from 1985 when we see some of these national commercials. I don't know what this one's advertising though. Oh, there we go. It's a television. Now I'm guessing the big deal with that one is that the fact it's got that kind of bit at the back that cuts away, makes it a slimmer profile or something. Oh, I hope that kid's ears aren't hurting listening to the terrible high-pitched whine from that monitor, that TV then. Oh, look, hold on. Yeah, it is. Janet Jackson. Now, let's think, what year is 85? She's going to be about 1920, something like that, when this came out. She does look a lot different to what I remember her in the kind of 90s when she was out as a bit of a sex symbol with a kind of Rhythm Nation and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, she does look very different here, very sort of rounded face. And I'm guessing that Japanese guy's someone that everyone should know as well. I wonder if anyone remembers that Janet Jackson advert. Let's see if we get any other celebrities coming up. There was a big thing in Japan once. They used to get the celebrities over from the West because they'd go and do an advert in Japan and no one in the West would ever see it, or at least that's what they thought, of course, until YouTube came along, and now you can watch these adverts with like De Niro advertising whiskey or something ridiculous like that. I think it said Magic Lord on those tapes then, so Disc Lord for discs and Magic Lord for tapes. Now this guy's probably some Japanese celeb, or was. I can't imagine he's just some random guy, and I guess people knew who the dancing, is that an emu? Or anyway, dancing bird. Yeah, that's fine, yeah, we agree with you, by which time you've lost all your revenue for the video because it's all made in the first couple of days anyway, so best to avoid the situation happening completely. And here's the video for the MSX again with the built-in printer. The printers were always the thing that went first, weren't they, with computers, so it's a bit of a built-in obsolescence there. As soon as that printer dies, your computer's going to be a bit sad. And I suppose, I don't know whether you better attach an external one to it. I can't imagine they'd give you that port if they had one built in, but there you go. Is that it? Looks like that's the end. We've reached the end of the video. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. I apologise if it was. Look, it's not cost you anything, put it that way, other than your own time, and I'm sorry, please don't ask me to reimburse you for that because I can't. So all I'm going to say is there you go, that's it, and as always, thanks for watching.